Ukrainian Bradley strike destroys $4 million Russian armor after drone spots 17 soldier unit. A single drone sightings triggered one of Ukraine's most decisive mechanized actions of the week. In under an hour, a Bradley fighting vehicle, guided by real-time UAV intelligence, shattered a Russian formation before it could deploy. Tanks were destroyed, APCs were disabled, reinforcements collapsed under javelin fire, and even an artillery crew surrendered, all contributing to more than $4 million in Russian losses with 0 Ukrainian casualties. After Drone Spot's 17 soldier unit, this operation shows how drone-driven coordination now dictates the battlefield. Stay with us as we break down how a quiet morning turned into a rapid, precision-led Ukrainian victory. Today at 6:17 a.m. in the eastern sector of the Donetsk region, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones recorded a scene that would set off a decisive short-range action for this sector that morning. Hovering silently above the mist-covered tree line, the UAVs identified 17 Russian soldiers, including a senior officer, standing beside 2 armored personnel carriers. They appeared to be preparing for movement toward the forward trench belts. What followed was a rapid shift from observation to targeted assault, a sequence that demonstrated how Ukraine now links drones, mechanized armor, and infantry into a single, real-time combat network. The initial drone feed was streamed straight into the control room of the 47th Mechanized Brigade, where officers immediately understood the significance of the grouping. A senior officer meant a higher coordination value, while the 2 APCs indicated planned mobility. Neutralizing that team would not only block their advance, but also sever their command influence for the coming hours. Ukraine's command recognized that the cluster represented a target worth striking decisively. Upon confirmation of the coordinates, the brigade executed the strike plan. This operation shows that speed, detect, decide, move drives outcomes. Once the intelligence was verified, the Ukrainian unit moved quickly because the drones offered clarity before the Russians had even begun dispersing. Reports from Ukrainian UAV units note that more than 67,000 Russian positions were struck last month through coordinated drone-to-ground systems. This engagement showcased exactly why that figure matters. Ukraine held information superiority, while Russia walked into open visibility. Before the APCs could even roll forward, Ukraine had already selected the strike asset, the M2A2 Bradley infantry fighting vehicle, and sent it forward. That decision alone would eventually lead to the destruction of armored Russian equipment worth over $3 million within minutes, with no recorded Ukrainian losses. As soon as the Bradley received the coordinates, the vehicle accelerated toward the trench system under continuous drone guidance. What might have been a slow, cautious advance became a direct movement because UAV operators provided real-time updates on Russian positions, firing angles, and narrow tree lines. When the Bradley crested the open ground, its 25mm Bushmaster cannon fired controlled bursts toward the Russian soldiers who had not yet reached proper cover. The Bradley didn't merely transport troops, it delivered shock. Each burst of the 25mm gun suppressed firing points and cleared the path for dismounting infantry. The ramp dropped, and Ukrainian soldiers rushed into the trench with calculated speed. The Bradley continued to fire, striking the Russian APCs before they could maneuver. The 2 vehicles, each costing approximately $400,000, were engaged, likely disabled within seconds. With those losses, Russia instantly forfeited its mobility edge and roughly $800,000 in armored assets. The Russians, who had been preparing to advance, now found themselves unable to regroup, unable to reposition, and unable to move without exposing themselves. Ukraine had taken the initiative before the battle even began. Inside the trench, Ukrainian infantry worked rapidly, using the suppressed angles to secure firing positions. The operation unfolded with overlapping phases: drones observing, Bradley suppressing, infantry occupying, each supporting the next. This blending of reconnaissance and mechanized action has become one of the most effective characteristics of Ukrainian frontline tactics. Analysts have repeatedly noted that Bradley crews in Ukraine have adapted Western doctrine to local terrain, using the vehicle not only as transport, but as a precision suppression platform. In this case, the cannon fire prevented any counter-movement by Russian troops, allowing Ukraine to take ground without delay. But no assault remains unchallenged for long. While the Ukrainian infantry secured the first trench, a sudden burst of fire came from the right flank. A Russian battle tank, concealed behind a narrow tree line, opened fire, shaking the entire trench structure. Heavy armor instantly altered the balance of the engagement, because a single tank can force infantry to fall back, even after a successful assault. However, Ukraine was prepared. A Ukrainian tank unit, possibly operating a T-64BV or a Leopard 2A4 depending on the sector, was already maneuvering based on drone spotting. Guided by UAV operators who tracked the Russian gun barrel through the branches, the Ukrainian tank positioned itself for a clear firing line. The Russian tank tried to adjust for a second shot, but the delay proved costly. The Ukrainian gunner fired first. The initial round struck low on the hull, crippling mobility. The second shot ignited the ammunition compartment, sending smoke and flame through the tree line. That single Russian tank, valued at nearly $1.5 million, was rendered completely inoperable. With one coordinated strike, Ukraine erased the biggest threat to its infantry and shifted the tempo back in its favor. With the enemy tank destroyed, Ukrainian troops advanced deeper into the trench network. They retrieved discarded rifles, radios, and field gear, items that often reveal enemy call signs and grid references. Some analysts argue that captured communication equipment can be worth more strategically than the destruction of a vehicle. As the team pushed further, they also secured new firing angles that blocked potential Russian reinforcements. The fight seemed to be calming, but modern front lines rarely stay quiet. Minutes later, Russian reinforcements did arrive. BMP-2 infantry carriers and T-72 tanks advanced in a tight formation from the tree line, firing their 30mm cannons and high-explosive rounds. Their goal was simple: overwhelm the Ukrainian position through firepower and retake the trench before Ukrainian forces could establish full control. The barrage forced Ukrainian infantry to press tightly against the trench walls, but the response was immediate. A Ukrainian operator, armed with a Javelin anti-tank missile, moved into position with guidance from overhead drones. The Javelin locked onto the signature of the advancing T-72 and launched. In moments, the missile arced upward before diving directly onto the turret, striking with precision. The explosion was unmistakable. Flames consumed the turret, and the tank came to a complete stop. That single hit, destroying another $1.2 million vehicle, created panic among the Russian armored column. One BMP attempted to rescue the tank crew, but under sustained fire, the vehicle began maneuvering erratically before retreating and abandoning the damaged tank entirely. The collapse of this counterattack left Russia with another dramatic loss in equipment. The destroyed T-72 raised Russia's confirmed losses in this short engagement to over $3.5 million. Meanwhile, Ukraine had not lost a single vehicle or soldier. This stark imbalance highlighted the efficiency of Ukraine's sensor-to-shooter network, where drones, tanks, anti-armor teams, and mechanized infantry worked in synchronized fashion. With the armored threat neutralized, Ukrainian infantry advanced into the recently contested ground. They inspected bodies, secured corners, and collected documents. Among the retrieved items were range tables, radio frequencies, and firing instructions, materials that could inform Ukraine's next counter-battery operations. Analysts note that these data points, though small, can influence large-scale decisions about artillery placement or drone routes. As the infantry continued forward, they discovered signs of deeper Russian retreat. Drone operators soon spotted something large beyond a scorched tree line, a 2 A65 Mr. B towed howitzer, previously struck by FPV drones. The gun, bent and fractured, was estimated at roughly $350,000 in value. The reconnaissance team approached cautiously and found several Russian artillerymen taking shelter under the damaged weapon. Exhausted and disoriented, the soldiers surrendered without resistance. Capturing an artillery crew is rare because drone and artillery duels often leave no survivors. But this surrender provided Ukraine with additional intelligence: maps, firing logs, and communication notebooks. Such materials reveal more than single battlefield intentions. They expose how entire artillery groups coordinate, including the damaged howitzer. This added another $350,000 to Russia's equipment losses for the morning. At this stage of the operation, one point stood out clearly. Ukraine had suffered 0 casualties and 0 equipment losses from dawn until the final surrender call. This was a rare engagement with no reported Ukrainian losses. Ukrainian forces achieved this not through overwhelming numbers, but through well-timed integration of drones, tanks, and mechanized infantry. Every movement was informed by UAV surveillance, reducing uncertainty and shortening reaction time. The battle ended within an hour, but it revealed a larger trend on the front. Russia lost multiple APCs, 2 tanks, including a T-72, and a howitzer, together worth over $4 million, in exchange for no meaningful territorial gain. Ukraine turned a small drone sighting into a full mechanized victory because every unit operated with a shared information picture. Meanwhile, Russian forces, moving in traditional dispersed waves, struggled to adapt. When Ukrainian reconnaissance called in the final report, the battlefield had gone quiet. Smoke drifted above the burned vehicles, and infantry regrouped near the secured positions. The mission's success demonstrated how Ukraine's military is evolving toward faster, integrated operations, where real-time information shapes every decision. It also showed the growing vulnerability of Russian armored forces to precision-guided weapons, drone reconnaissance, and coordinated assaults. The question now is not how this battle was won, but what this model of warfare means for the next stage of the conflict. As drone networks expand and mechanized units learn to move with digital coordination, will these rapid, information-driven strikes continue to reshape the front lines? Or will Russia find a way to counter the momentum?